Namaste and greetings. I, Nikita Bhardwaj, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav एवं नीति अनुसंधान संस्थान नई दिल्ली, extend my warmest welcome to you all to IMPRI #Web Policy Learning. Today, we are gathered here for Day 25 of Law and Public Policy Youth Fellowship, an online national summer school program, a 2-month online immersive legal awareness and action research certificate training course and internship program. This program is organized by IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, New Delhi. The chair for the program is Professor Vibhuti Patel, visiting distinguished professor at IMPRI, and the fellowship lead advisor and expert legal hands-on sessions is Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam, visiting senior fellow IMPRI. The distinguished experts includes Sri Sandeep Chachra, Professor Vibhuti Patel, Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam, Advocate Dr. Vaida Nayanar, Professor Mukul Ashar, Professor Uday Shankar, Sri Udit Mishra, Dr. Nivedita P. Haran, Sri Bhartinder Singh Baswan, Dr. Purnima Chauhan, Advocate Dr. Albertina Almeida, Dr. Gladstone Xavier, Professor Aruna Roy, Advocate Audrey de Mello, Dr. Kaustav K. Bandopadhyay, Advocate Nalini Deshmukh, Professor Sharmila Goge, Advocate Kavya Agnes, Dr. Rashmi Singh, Mr. Devaditya Sinha, Professor Swaran Singh, Advocate Lara Jasani, Professor Anil K. Gupta, Justice Ajit K. Singh, Mr. Himanshu Shekhar, Dr. Amar Jasani, Dr. Soumyadeep Chattopadhyay, Mr. Bilal Khan, Sri Rajiv Ranjan Singh, Sri Tikender Singh Panwar, Sri Shailesh Gandhi, Dr. Simi Mehta, Advocate Abdul Hafiz Gandhi, Professor Amita Singh, Dr. Ajay Gudavarti, Sri Amit Dubey, Professor Sanghamitra Acharya, Dr. Y. Suresh Reddy, Advocate Sanchita Ain, Sri Surendra Tripathi. The conveners for this course are Dr. Simi Mehta, CEO and Editorial Director at IMPRI, Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam, Visiting Senior Fellow IMPRI, and Dr. Arjun Kumar, Director at IMPRI. I welcome you all to this enlightening deliberation and thank you for putting your time, energy, and efforts into truly understanding the vital role and complex intricacies of legal and public policy frameworks. The course will enable the participants to comprehend the nuances and technicalities of legal and public policy paradigms and therefore acquire theoretical insights along with technical skills to conduct research. We've also shared the course outline and reading resources document in your email for your kind perusal. We will be providing videos of each session for flexible learning at your pace and pace. Before we start today's session, I would like to announce the housekeeping rules. It is imperative that you join the meeting on time. There will be a Q&A session after each presentation. Share your questions in the Q&A box and not in the chat box. The questions must not be posted as an anonymous attendee. Ensure that your questions are precise. Refrain from making general comments in the question to save time. Our session for day 5 will cover topics of Interactive Discussion Session 7 by Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam and Careers in Law and Public Policy by Advocate Sanchita Ain. To start the session, I would like to invite Professor Vibhuti Patel for her opening chair remarks.
Thank you, Nikita. I would also like to thank the IMPRI team, Dr. Arjun Kumar, Dr. Simi Mehta, Dr. Shalu Nigam, Ms. Sweta Shankar, Ms. Vidita, Mr. Satyam Tripathi, Nikita Bharadwaj, Samriddhi Sharma, and Harsha Patra for putting this course together. Now we are at the fag end of the course and you must be waiting for the concluding session on 11th to get your certificates. Welcome, Advocate Sanchita Ain and esteemed participants. This is the 9th week and 25th day of this online summer school program. And we had the very interesting discussions all these 24 days. And last time, what we got was a very interesting presentation by 3 speakers. And they gave a very good an understanding of the situation. And we also had many, we also discussed several issues concerning developmental issues and many programs that Sanghamitra Acharya She spoke on the health policies and law. She also went into the whole history of health policies and the board, starting from board committee report and the various covenants, international covenants on right to health, and India's national health policy, which and the landmark was 1984 policy on health for all by 2000 AD, which was presented in the UN by the Prime Minister, and also which also focused on the community health. And then later on, we saw more and more privatization, especially after 1991. National health policy also had a more opening up of the private sector. And later on, by 2000, the whole buzzword was a public-private partnership. And now we are talking about the privatization of insurance and privatization. More and more public health services are reducing. WHO had recommended nearly 6% of the GDP for health concerns, and also during the pandemic, 10% of GDP was requested to be allocated for public health concerns, but that did not happen. Currently, India's GDP contribution for health sector is less than 1%. And this also creates a lot of concern for how to make the right to health actual reality in Indian setting, and how the people from the marginalized communities and can address their health rights. We have learned the lessons of pandemic, and Dr. Sangamitra also talked about the whole interface of law, public policies, and the people's demands and needs and demands. And I think we need to do a lot of rethinking about how to make public health sector and the system strong, because the kind of services which are located only in the metropolitan centers, even in the periphery of the metropolitan centers, and also at the what you call tier 2, tier 3 cities, and in the peri-urban areas also, such facilities are not available. So expansion of healthcare sector and making also the private sector more responsible, especially the CSR fund. It goes for the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, but I think basic health infrastructure, especially the preventive, what Sangeeta Mitra Acharya told about, that okay, Western curative model, extremely capital incentive, that can be taken care of by the people who are purchasing power. But the preventive health care, making the safe water, sanitation, basic facilities for all the vector-borne diseases, if we target our attention to that, that would be a very good effort. The second presentation by Dr. Y. Suresh Reddy was on education policies and law. He also gave a chronological history of modern education in India, starting with Macaulay's concern for making the Indian population as a coconut, which is apparently brown, but inside they would have the values and the ethos of the British rule, and they would accept whatever the British education taught. That would be the considered as a knowledge, no? And then in the post-independence period, we had education policies. Immediately after the India's independence, we created an education commission, and UGC was also put in place by 1965. We had a Kothari commission, which gave a comprehensive this thing, and also talked about the trust-run schools and schools and university and colleges that can also get support. So now we got the new phenomena called 2F12B. If you get, then you are able to access government grant, and that was the downfall of the public, totally 100% public institutions in schools and colleges, which were supported by the state. So the comparison between the private sector and the public sector was slowly and gradually became sharper. We had another very important education policy in 1986, which focused on massification of education, making the reach of an education accessible in the Mufassil areas and also to the underserved communities. And there was special focus on women, getting more and more girls and women into the educational institutions, right from primary school to secondary and higher education. We had recently we saw so many changes, drastic changes have come in the education sector with the 4 bills which were presented in the parliament by Mr. Kapil Sibal when he was education minister, of internationalization of education. Within just 5 to 6 years, we have had from 740 to 1,068 educational institutions. More and more private institutions are entering. Foreign institutions are also allowed to start their campuses within India, and my major overhaul is happening. And it is in this context that we got National Education Policy 2020, which has brought in so many new changes with the introduction of a digital technology, a massive open online resources, MOOCs. They can be integrated. Then they are talking about the seamless education, where both you have hybrid mode, in-person teaching, nearly 40%, and 60% can be online. But the problem is of digital divide. So we are talking about some of the salient features of the National Education Policy, which talks about the pre-primary education. So induction of child in the education right at the age of 3. So 3 to 6 pre-primary, and then first and second standard, that is 5 years. And then it talks about then it's a secondary education and higher education. And also it has targeted 50% of gross enrollment in the universities. That is the target by 2040. So this is kind of a new, and also India has to have a competitive edge in the knowledge economy. And that's why we need to take the question of education and the focus on research, critical reflection, moral values. These have been emphasized by the latest education policy, and so many at a subnational level also, so many states have started rehauling their education system, both the school education as well as university education. And we had so these two were extremely important interactions that we had. And we also had a third presentation on digital technology, that how digital technologies are entering in a massive way, and we all are using social media. Dr. Shri Amit Dubey, he gave us so many horror stories about how the technologies are abused, and the introduction of artificial technology is also posing so many new challenges. So I think we need to be aware about cyber crime, cyber stalking, cheating, and a lot of abuse of the technology, how the Twitter was hijacked, no? So how the hackers are supporting all the technology. And what he appealed at the end of his lecture was that we all should not treat technology as a substitute of human mind. We must keep our human mind active, and also the challenges which are posed by the technology. I think by using our human mind, we need to meet these challenges and see to it that the technology don't become the overpowering determinant of our existence, but we should control and we should tame the technology. So that was the message. But all the three sessions were mind-blowing. They were extremely useful in the context of law and public policy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Next up, I request Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam to commence with the interactive discussion session. Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam is the Senior Visiting Fellow, IMPRI, Advocate, Author, and Researcher, Gender and Human Rights. Welcome, ma'am, and over to you.
So, thank you, Nikita. And today I'll just start maybe, with my presentation on consumer rights, because we are talking about privatization and, what could be a tool we can use against privatization. So what I will be talking about today is about the rights of consumer, the law relating to that. And then we can take some of the questions about the session, and also about if any questions you have about the research, the projects you're doing. So, so why do we need consumer protection? We know that the consumers are ignorant. We know that consumers are unorganized. We know that the markets, the rich, corporate, and the big industries, how they exploit consumers. So we have to create a social environment which is, where this malpractices could be avoided, where deceptive advertising should be controlled, and so in terms of when we talk about freedom of enterprises, but then that freedom should not extend to exploitation of consumers. So how are consumers being exploited? There could be adulterated products being sold. There could be false information. There could be artificial scarcity, which could be generated. There could be duplicate goods, misleading advertisements, and all kind of way the consumers are being exploited. So if we look at our history, we have seen how during the British rule, the colonial government, they have made the salt law, and they imposed the salt tax on the people of India, where the people have to give tax on the salt. MP Gandhi and other leaders, they started Namak or Salt Satyagraha, which is a mass movement, and where a march was conducted from 12th of March to 5 April 1930, and they broke the law. And Gandhiji, in his speech, he said that salt tax is inhuman, and salt satyagraha is a poor man's struggle. And finally, agreement was reached in 1931, and the government, the colonial government, the British government, they ended the salt tax law, and it quickly grew into the salt satyagraha, quickly grew into the mass satyagraha, and the act of civil disobedience. It started a kind of it fires the struggle for independence. And Pandit Nehru, he said that salt satyagraha has made important changes. And in his word, he says, of course, this movement exercised tremendous pressure on the British government and shook the government machinery, but the real importance, to my mind, lay in the effect they had on our own people, and especially the village masses. Non-cooperation dragged them out of the mire and gave them self-respect and self-reliance. They acted courageously and did not submit so easily to unjust oppression. Their outlook widened, and they began to think a little in terms of India as a whole. It was a remarkable transformation. So at that point of time, small satyagraha, and it led to freedom of India. And if you see, during the 70s, there was a lot of drought and famine, and it led to high inflation. And the women of the women's movement, they came out, and they protested, and this was seen as an assertion of citizenship rights. In 1973, the United Women's Enterprise Rights Fund, and it's also Mehengai Pratikar Sayukt Mahila Samiti, they were formed to mobilize women against inflation, and they also raised various other issues, including the livelihood issue. So this movement did this fireball into mass movement, and it focused on issue of rising prices and demanded consumer protection. And they demanded that to fix some minimum prices and distribute all essential commodities, and the government should take action. So huge group of women, they came out between 10,000 to 20,000 in number. They hold demonstration at the government office. The House of MPs were out. Officials and merchants were, their demonstrations were being held at that places. And those who could not go there, they expressed their concerns by beating thalis, kerosene tins with balloons or rolling pins, or ladles. So this movement was led by a coalition of different parties, and they demand accessibility to food grain, sugar, cooking oil, and kerosene. And this movement mobilized large number of women belonging to middle class, lower class, and working class, because it's women who are being affected by inflation. And in 1975, with the declaration of emergency, it came to abrupt halt. But basically, then we have a lot of things which talks about consumer protection, then the law. But what is meant by consumer protection? It means protecting the interest of consumer from the unfair trade practices, and to protect them from the clutches of fraud producers or sellers. It provides safeguards to consumer from exploitation. So what are the ways and means where consumer could be protected? Either it should be by self-regulation by business, or business association could come in, but we have seen that these organizations have not helped much. So how can we raise consumer awareness? There is a government, of course, that is there, and there are consumer organizations which are doing this work. So Consumer Protection Act 1986 was brought into place, and the basic object is to safeguard the interest of buyers and protect them from unfair practices of the market. The law provides the step to protect consumers from corrupt and unscrupulous malpractices, and it provides remedies in case of rights if the rights of consumers are violated. And main objective is to protect the interest of consumer and to establish a mechanism to settle the consumer dispute. The Act also promotes consumer education and to educate consumer about their rights and responsibilities. But this Act in 1986 it came in, and it was again amended in 2019. A new law which came in. It provides it protects the consumers against the modern kind of technology which is emerging. So the Act contains various provisions. It provides for speedy and effective disposal of consumer complaints through alternate dispute resolution mechanism. It provides compensation to the consumer in case their rights have been infringed. So basically, the intention is to include provision for e-consumers, because now we have a lot of marketing which is taking place online. So this law has a provision to protect e-consumers because of development of technology. So it protects the consumers from unfair trade practices as well as against misleading advertisements. And a consumer can seek redressal against unfair trade practices. It protects the consumer by appointing authorities for timely and sufficient administration and settlement of consumer disputes, lay down the penalty for offenses committed under the Act, and it also lay down a provision for consumers' welfare and provides for speedy and effective disposal of consumer complaints. So who is a consumer? A consumer is an individual. It could be a group of individuals who buy or purchase goods or hire services for their own personal use, and that should be in exchange for consideration. So voluntary services won't be coming under this Act. And if you are buying for the purpose, if buying something for the purpose of manufacturing or resale or for commercial use, again, you will not be called as consumer. But this new law, 2019, it includes all online transactions conducted through electronic means or direct selling or tele-shopping or through multi-level marketing. What is unfair trade practice? It includes manufacturing of good which is defective, or it could include defective service. It could also include behavior such as not issuing the cash memo or bill for the goods and purchase for the good purchased or service rendered. It includes refusing to take back or withdraw the goods or services and not refunding the consideration. It includes disclosing the personal information of the consumer. The other day we were talking about how if the market is disclosing the personal information. So this law has it could come under the provision of this law as unfair trade practice. So what are the rights of consumers? Now, under this law, the consumers have 6 rights. One is right to safety. So the consumer must be protected from hazardous goods and services. The right to be informed. The consumer should be informed about the quality, quantity, purity, and the standard and the price of goods of products. Then next is right to choose. So the consumer should have right to access to a variety of goods and services, and mostly at the competitive prices. Then right to seek redressal or right to be heard. So you should have some respective forums where which could deal with unfair and trade practices. Then right to receive adequate compensation in case the consumer is being cheated by the seller, and right to receive consumer education. So we have different levels of forum which are addressing the consumer complaints. So at the district level, we have district commissions. So you can go to your district and you can find out there would be a district commission, consumer commission within your district. And basically, they have to deal with the complaints where the value of the goods or services or product paid does not exceed 50 lakhs rupees. In 1986, this limit was much lower to 20 lakhs, but in 2019, this was raised to 50 lakhs. Then there are state commission. If this is district commission, you go with your complaint, you're not satisfied, you can appeal against that decision to the state commission, and their power is between 50 lakhs to 2 crores. And even if you're not satisfied with the decision of the state commission, you can approach the national commission, or if your product or the value of the goods, services or product paid as consideration exceed rupees 2 crore, you can directly go to the national commission. So again, these are the functions of the authorities which are being created under this act, and basically the purpose is that to ensure that there are no false or misleading advertisements, to prevent unfair trade practices, to protect and promote the consumer rights, to investigate the cases of violation of consumer rights, to review the matters relating to factors which hinder the enjoyment of consumer rights, to recommend adoption of international covenants and practices, to promote research and awareness, and lay down guidelines to prevent unfair trade practices. The central authority is being created, which has power to recall the goods or services which are hazardous or detrimental to the consumers. They can order to reimburse the price of goods and services to the consumer, and they can discontinue the practices that are harmful to the consumers. And if there is a case of false and misleading advertisement, they can fine the company with the penalty may extend up to 10 lakhs of rupees. So how can one make a complaint? The law says that a complaint relating to violation of consumer rights or unfair trade practices or a false or misleading advertisement can be made by any consumer or the class of consumers, and it could be made in writing or in electronic mode. So who can make a complaint? It could be any consumer. It could be a voluntary consumer or association or organization, which came into force under any law. It could be the central government or any state government with central authority, or it could be one or more consumers when there are numerous consumers having the same interest. In the event of consumer's death, his legal heir can, a representative can appear in the court. And the important thing is that there is no need for an advocate to appear in the consumer court. Any person, any consumer can file or represent their complaint, so through either themselves or via their representatives. The new law also provides for product liability. So a product liability action may be brought by a complainant against a product manufacturer or product seller. And the liability of product manufacturer is that the product, if he could be penalized if the product contains manufacturing defect, if the product is defective, there is a deviation from manufacturing specification, the product does not conform to express warranty, the product failed to contain adequate information and proper usage. Again, the liability of service provider. So there should, if there is an act of negligence, again, the service provider can be held liable. And if he fails to conform to the express warranty or terms of condition of the contract, or the service provider is faulty or imperfect, that person could be penalized. The punishment for false or misleading advertisement, as we have already shared, it could be imprisonment up to 2 years and fine of 10 lakh rupees. If the manufacturer, the person is manufacturing, selling or distributing product which contains adulterants, because adulterants are something which can harm the health of a person. So under this new law, if the product is adulterated, but it does not cause injury to the consumer, still the person, the seller or the manufacturer could be imprisoned up to 6 months and fine up to 1 lakh of rupees. If the adulterant cause injury not amounting to grievous hurt, the term of imprisonment is 1 year and fine to 3 lakh of rupees. If the adulterant cause injury amounting to grievous hurt, the person could be penalized for 7 years and fine is rupees 5 lakhs. If the product result in causing death of the consumer, then the person could be imprisonment from 7 years up to life imprisonment, and punishment is the fine is 10 lakhs of rupees. So some of the cases which have come recently before the courts is, in one of the case, a company, which advertise commercial trivializing the Horlicks, this product called Horlicks. So the Delhi High Court relied on various judgments, and it held that the advertisement is, harmful, and it does not provide any concrete proof regarding the quality of the products. And the court says that electronic media leaves an impression on the minds of the viewers that would not only be detrimental to the consumers, but also the complainant would suffer irreparable damages. So in another case, the complainant participated in McDonald's, the scheme, which says McDonald's mein khao har bar price le jao. And this was the restaurant in the Connaught Place. And this was the kind of subsidiary of this McDonald's restaurant. And they were not giving their short prices as per the scheme. And so that is district forum awarded the compensation and cost to the complainant of rupees 10,000 to 20,000. And the fine of rupees 2,000. And then this company approached the state commission. State commission enhanced the fine to rupees 2 lakhs and 10 lakhs. And then the company went to National Commission, and the National Commission said that scheme is an unfair trade practices. There may be similar people like complainant who may not have come forward. So they allowed the relief to the complainant, but they reduced the amount of compensation. So so there are cases after cases where in one case the hospital refused to release a dead body, and this was constituted as deficiency in service under the Consumer Protection Act. The Consumer Forum also hold an airport liable for deficient services because during the rain they don't provide cover on the boarding ladder, and it direct compensation of 16,000 rupees to the passenger. In another case, a movie, the person who went to the movie and he suffered from a bite, a rodent bite while watching the movie, and the commission has directed to pay 67,000 rupees as compensation. In another case, the forum directs the Apple India to replace a student's defective laptop or to pay monetary compensation of worth rupees 2.3 lakhs. So, these are the ways the consumers have approached the consumer commissions and they have obtained the relief. So basically, it is about consumer activism, how the consumers influence the way in which goods and services are produced or delivered. So, basically, if you talk about the Western countries, they talk about, safer, ethical, and environmental friendly way, the way the product should be made, and the quality of the product is being, taken into consideration. So what they do that in many cases they have boycotted or, boycotting of the products, and they have forced the companies to focus on alternative practices. They have utilized media activism. They have lobbied with government, and the basic purpose is to practice minimal or mindful consumption. And in terms of climate change, also people are, talking about, forcing the companies to ensure safer, ethical, and environmental friendly products. So, what do consumer boycotts? They damage the company's reputation, and in many cases, sometimes it has resulted in the dip of company stock prices. So mobilization by the consumers have led to, sometimes policy changes or restructuring of leadership. And if the boycott is relating to major societal issues. For example, the Nestle, which is making a baby formula, and it says that their formula is better than the breast milk and more convenient to use. So in 1977, consumers worldwide, they boycotted the formula and saying that the Nestle company is misleading the customers. And in poor countries, when it is mixed with infected water, babies are getting sick. So, but Nestle refused to compromise, and for 7 years, this dispute just went on. And finally, the company has to give up, and they have to agree to comply with the recommendations being made by the World Health Organization. So, in another case, a company that's PETA, that prevention of ethical treatment of animals. So that organization, they say that in 2020 that the animal furs should be shouldn't be used, and the product made from the furs of animals such as rabbit and raccoons shouldn't be used. So they write to the company and declare that they would boycott it, and the protest took place in London. And in October 2023, the group announced that the company has decided to ban the sale of fur across all of its brands. So, so they have collected the signature from more than 150,000 people, and so it's the whole the kind of campaign which went behind this stoppage of using fur of animals. In 2020, again in Mexico, there was a company called Constellation Brand, and there is a campaign group called Mexicali Resist, and they boycotted this company in 2018 because this company gained access to the desert region, and where the drinking water supply is being affected. And the people says that this company went into the shady kind of deal with the government, and the company beer factories draining up their water. And finally, after this protest, the government has to cancel the water rights and construction permit of this company, and this is seen as a victory of campaigners. In 2010, Greenpeace boycotted against the Kit Kat, and they say that the company is destroying the rainforest, and through social media activity, they forced Kit Kat to cut all the ties with another company which is providing them the oil for making Kit Kat. And this movement is again hailed as a success in consumer activism. If we come to India, we have seen this Coca-Cola struggle in Kashmir in Kerala. In this village, the factory was opened, and soon the well started running dry because all the water was taken by the Coca-Cola to manufacture their product, and the water become toxic. So, and the waste from the factory is being spread around, and the company sold it as a fertilizer. And then the people protested, and the company was closed from 2004 to May 2021. And in July 2017, the company informed the Supreme Court that it does not intend to commence the manufacturing operation in that particular plant, because many of the people who protested, they were Adivasis and women. And later a high-powered committee was formulated to determine the damages to the community, and this committee says that the damage should be rupees 2016 crores, because they calculated all agricultural loss, health damages, cost of providing water, wage loss, opportunity cost, and cost of polluting the water resources. So again, this is the success of how people protested against this the giant, the Coca-Cola. In another case, the company called Unilever, which is making Fair and Lovely, that cream of it says that it will lighten the color of the skin, and it has been criticized for promoting this negative stereotypes around the dark skin tones. And the company says that it is the cream is meant to whiten and lighten the skin, but several petitions were launched. People use social media, and they urge this company to stop the production of Fair and Lovely. And more than 18,000 people signed this petition within several weeks. And and they say that the company is promoting negative stereotypes against skin colors, and also they say that the company can, that which is being made is contains toxic materials such as mercury, which may harm the skin, and the company is misleading the consumers. So, after that, the company changed the name of this film. But if you see, in some countries, a poll has been conducted in 17 countries, with more than 15,000 consumers, and they say that China, people from China and Denmark and France, they have refused to buy products from certain manufacturers. Whereas if you talk about Mexico and Japan, consumers seems to be tolerant with avoiding, they don't avoid particular brand. But if you see overall, the most boycotted brands were Nike, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, and Nestle. The Germans have blacklisted various brands such as Adidas, Opel, and Mercedes. And the most frequently cited reasons for boycotting were unfair labor practices and unhealthy products. In some cases, the companies have also boycotted, saying that this product is being manufactured in poor countries where your children and women are being employed at very low wages. They were not given proper wages. The safety conditions are not being properly followed. So therefore, they have boycotted those products. And they say that some of the products also harm the climate, and they don't respect the agreement which talks about global warming. So people are aware, and they are making such kind of they are taking these actions against the big companies. So there are strong consumer movements against big companies. So there is Ralph Nader is one of the activists in USA. He is working on this consumer rights, and he said that these companies, Citigroup, General Motors, Procter and Gamble, United Healthcare, and Apple, and some of the giant revenues, they garner revenues across the nation states. Most are global, but there is no public government, global government, which is holding them accountable. These entities have a clear and obsessive unity of purpose, that is money for their bosses, for shareholders, money to buy lawyers and politicians, and to take down laws and whatever else slow down the pace of hoarding wealth. So, because even we have seen earlier in the Bhopal gas tragedy case that how, companies, the giant companies are opening, their plants in poor countries and harming the health of people. So, so basically, they say that, public interest group, consumer protection organizations, social networks, they have worked relentlessly to break through the battalion of lobbyists, being paid by corporate interests. The people power against the corporate power is something which is coming out in the work of various consumer movements. So with this, I will end this presentation, and we have to talk about sustainable consumption, because shopping and consumption is a political action, as we have seen. So this is what I think the major message I get. So I'll just stop here, and maybe you can take up questions about this presentation and also about the research projects if you have.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the enlightening session. I request the chair, Professor Vibhuti, ma'am, to share her remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Shalu Nigam, for a very, very rooted and very realistic presentation on the Consumer Protection Act. You have shown both first of all, that it has to safeguard the interest, but what is happening in reality is that more and more malpractices which are taking place. Good, you started with Gandhiji's Satyagraha and anti-price rise women's movement. In fact, that was the initiation of my involvement in the mass movement, because we were in charge of the starting this anti-price-rise women's movement in the city of Baroda. I was in college, Baroda had never seen such a massive demonstration in the post-independence period. Nearly 10,000 women from lower middle class and working class took part in this movement against adulteration, against black marketing, against hoarding, against pawning of ration card by the shopkeepers, and selling their quota into the black market. So it was a really very important, and in fact, Navnirman movement that also had taken up the same issue, led by this was a students' movement in 1974. Recently, there have been some very important, because of the pharma industry's involvement, and especially the so many children in Africa died because of cough syrup, which was said, because India is the major supplier of pharmaceutical this thing to the developing world, because multinationals are charging very high. As compared to that, Indian medicines are nearly 10 times less costly, because we don't go by the we go by the Paris Patent Act, that we don't accept what the GATT and WTO are doing. So at one level, India is doing very well by protesting against the giant multinationals who are really exploiting the people. Even when it came to the drugs for AIDS, it was the India which rescued most of the countries, because it was the medicine by multinationals were not affordable. But at the same time, like spurious drugs is a major problem in the small and tiny sector. So can you throw light on the recent debate that is going on about the whole cough syrup tragedy, and are there any public interest litigations and any African governments taking action against this?
Surely we have this foods, authority which is supposed to take, care of, if they're supposed to do the investigation. But again, there are many cases with, many of the consumer organizations which are saying, that a lot of, again, corruption in the government departments and all. So, and in India, surely we that consumer movement, that kind of inertia right now, it's, we have to strengthen that inertia, because in the 70s there was a lot of protests, but right now it's not there. And the pharma companies, the medical companies, they all are again we need to have a strong state mechanism which is doing all kind of testing, and because there are organizations like consumer education and research societies and all, because when they went to the market and do the kind of testing, they found various products which are being fake or which are misleading or harming the health of computers, basically all those products by some of the that's Baba Ramdev and all those kind of Ayurvedic products in the name of Ayurveda. What they are selling is something which is which is questionable. So they have come out with their reports time to time about how these companies are harming health. But again, the government is the kind of corporate nexus, state nexus is there. So the government is not taking action. So that is why we need more strong consumer movements in our country. Where people should keep on. First of all, we have to invest resources in terms of testing the products. How many. Because if the government is not doing, again, it's this authority, the state authority, which is responsible, if they are not doing their job, or in some cases they have come out that, okay, this product is inefficient. And even if you have seen during the Diwali and other kind of festivals, they do the raid on, mithai walas and all. They're saying that, this khoya is something which is made from milk, which is adulterated. So those kind of things are, at some places it's going on, but at other level, when you talk about big corporates, no action is being taken against them. So that is something, again, because we need to have more strong kind of consumer movement, which should take.
Yeah. I think it is also, there is a class bias also. When it came to, say, even Center for Science and Environment did the study of all these bottled waters, which had so many contamination, who were proclaiming to be providing clean water, which was not the case, and nothing happened. But at the same time, when the hawkers who are selling pani puri, bhel or batata vada or any fresh stuff, there was this thing, the food authorities of India, they said that they were responsible for spreading the disease. But when Indira Jaising got the test done, in fact, the 5-star hotels had a more this thing various types of contaminated work, because they were storing their food for such a long time. So salmonella and whatever bacteria and virus, they were more in the food samples which were tested. While the hawkers and the people, their turnover is so high. They produce in front of you, they make things in front of you, and they also sell it immediately. So that it is not even stale, it is a fresh food served, fresh hot meal served to the people. And that was the argument which was there in the public interest litigation on behalf of the Hawkers Association. And I think after that, the stigmatization of hawkers also reduced. So I think this kind of support systems are also very important. And I think that also helped the SHGs and all, because whether food prepared by the SHGs, is it of the same quality? Because most of the expensive restaurant and all, they would otherwise they would only benefit. And the women who are making this, only thing like hygiene, the question of hygiene, yes, awareness has to be there. Yeah, it's very important.
Yeah, sure. Even during the Diwali season, if you see, like they say, okay, banning the patakas and all, but the police is suddenly, they're more violent towards small vendors. So even Moongfali ka, that stall and uske upar ek chota sa, if they're putting that smoke thing, and the police will beat them, and then but the big manufacturers are doing what kind of things, and that is being allowed. Similarly, about the plastic. That material, plastic bags which we are using, they will get caught hold of small vendors. But when it comes to big companies like the chips packet and all, and milk products and all, coming is in the plastic bag, no action is being taken against them. So again, that is what we have to see as citizens, as consumers. I think we have to really push that kind of attitude.
Currently, also the conflict in Gurgaon is going on. The Safai Karmachari and the upper class housewives. No, there are petitions we are seeing on WhatsApp and all.
Thank you so much, ma'am. The floor is now open for questions from the audience. Meanwhile, ma'am, I have a question. So as you mentioned that the West, Germany and other countries that you mentioned, they have banned some of the prominent companies. So in the light of this, do you think India has fared badly in the consumer rights movement?
Yeah, not fare badly, but the thing is that we have to become more strong. We have various consumer organizations which are working in the field. We have seen that that in 70s we have a big protest by women's movement, but right now that that kind of that inertia, that kind of initiative is not coming up. So maybe we as consumers have just become get more tolerant to whatever is happening, and that attitude I think we need to change as consumers. Because as consumers, even the government, the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, it's talking about the campaign Jago Grahak Jago. And still, if you see the TV serials, some of the initial TV serials, being made about consumer awareness and consumer rights, in the Doordarshan they used to show earlier. But right now, with a lot of private channels coming in, these kind of things have somehow, come down. And I remember, watching one of the serial, that Rajini, that famous Rajini serial, which is, a housewife fighting for the consumer rights. Now, that kind of spirit, I think we need to revive that spirit again.
Yeah.
And
but what about social media? Aren't people using social media for making people, consumers aware? Are there any social media portals also?
Yeah, on social media also people are protesting. Yeah, those petitions, the change petitions, so many petitions are being filed. And like the Unilever case, Fair and Lovely thing, which is about, the people who protested on social media. And there are various other several protests which took place on social media, the campaigns being started. But again, we need those kind of, active citizens who could really raise questions and challenge, whatever is happening, if something is wrong is happening around us.
Thank you, ma'am. If anyone else has any questions, please raise your hand.
Yeah, even about your research reports or anything else about the research also.
So question of pornographic literature and the dumping of this very obscene literature, that would not come under. So it would, we'll have to go only via the Anti-Obscenity Act.
Yeah, there are criminal provisions which talks about the pornography. You know, we have the Criminal Justice Amendment Act, and you know all kind of those criminal law which is there, and also we have this. You know, it all depends on the facts and circumstances if it can be considered as a consumer matter, because if someone is selling that kind of material, you know, and which is harming the interest of the consumer, so that the way we have to, you know, argue this case, maybe, you know, that kind of thing, you know, then we have to see, you know, how can we argue this case. Yeah, so we have question from Garvit. Yes.
I had primarily a question about my research, fieldwork research, and I was struggling with it. So my topic was related to inflation and economic ideology, how different people with different levels of education in economics and say other factors like their wealth would fundamentally change their perception and analysis of inflation and how they would react to it. So there was a specific question which I was having a problem in framing it, because the responses I was getting in pilots were very confusing. Because I think the way I was framing it was a problem, because when I reframed the question, I would get a different answer. The question was basically, which of these factors do you think in fact impact the inflation in everyday commodities like rice, vegetables, etc. the most? The two options were excess demand or scarcity. Second option was profiteering or increase in profits, increase in prices for profits. The thing is that now there's I'm at a crossroads. So because this topic is related to ideology and all that. So the problem that occurs here is that everybody is using the same language to express inflation. There's obviously a result of the sort of ideology that we have, the linguistic tools that we have in society. But because everybody is answering with that demand and supply answer, that they basically say that, what do you call that? Inflation happens mostly because of, say, demand and supply, right? There is no elaboration on that. There is a clear impact of how we cannot move beyond that framework, even if you plot them, because I did that. I was going to include that at the end of my questionnaire too. And so I do not know what to do, because this result, I was not really expecting this result, that everyone from various classes and backgrounds would respond in the same way. So like, again, that is me in a way. I had a prefix expected result and it's not meeting that. So I'm not really sure on where to go with this.
I think yours is a qualitative research, so let people speak. No, don't give them choices. Just say that, how do you experience inflation? How has it affected your family members, your children, your wife, your relatives, your health emergency? Within that, you can have that. How has it affected your standard of living, the food that you were eating, or the health emergencies you met with, or educational needs of your children, or your future dreams of having your own house. So then the nuances will come out, because you have already given them choice, no? The demand and supply that you can bring out in your analysis, economics, no? That how macroeconomics are affecting mesoeconomics and microeconomic. That is your job as a researcher. But when it comes to people's perception, let them say how they are experiencing, and choose the different types of people. You choose this women-headed household, you choose a young homemaker, you choose a middle-aged homemaker, you choose this elderly people. So the variety of experiences, elderly people would be focusing more on geriatric disability and the health needs and insecurity of food, inadequate purchasing power. So I think that will bring more rich data as well as perceptions of people. And what you are talking of demand and supply, that you can do in your analysis and your critical reflection, in your discussion, you can bring it. What you get is experiential data of the people. So varied forms of experiences, how a young college-going person experiences inflation, how a housewife experiences inflation, how a man earning in working in the informal sector experiences inflation, or how an elderly person experiences, how a person with disability experiences, and what are their basic needs which they are not able to fulfill because of inflation. So that will give you rich variety of data, and also different positionalities and different predicaments and the existential struggles that people with varied forms of intersectional vulnerabilities are facing.
Yeah, Professor, I'm trying to do just that. There was this is actually part
It
of my
is a
other question.
qualitative research. So let them
Yes,
tell
yes.
their story. Yeah.
Okay.
And that
Okay.
story means from there, you just take out your data from the story. And there will be a variety of stories because the people have a different existential survival struggles, no? Because their social cultural locations are very different.
I understand. Got it.
Yeah, even if you see that during, in terms of, marriage, if there's a marriage in a family, the family have to cook food for so many people. And, if they can't buy tomatoes, they can't buy potatoes, so those kind of stories, the different, if you go to the different kind of people, in different circumstances, they may be facing different kinds of situation. So those situations may be taken in, and then you can, then after that you can analyze based on your different kinds of stories you are getting, and then you have to dig through those stories to get your data. But the important thing is the kind of case studies which may come up, which may be very interesting, the kind of way the people are facing, because even if you see the demonetization thing, and various organizations have done some research on, they went to people and they try to find out what kind of the problem they have faced because of demonetization. One is of course standing in line and some people dying and other kind of things, but there are also other kind of stories which came up. So those are very interesting, kind of information which is there, which is available there, so that you can see.
I think
understand.
Advocate Sanchita Ain has joined. Yeah.
So thank you, ma'am. Moving forward with the next session for the day. Moving forward with the session for the day.
Hi, thank you for having me. Yeah, I've just finished court and have to rush to airport. So it's the ideal time I have right now for the session.
Ma'am, your voice is breaking.
Sorry, there's no electricity, therefore no Wi-Fi. I am in Meghalaya headquarters.
Connection issues. I will check.
The nativity. I'm in Meghalaya, there's no electricity, there's been power short. So I'll just switch off the video so that it's more convenient. I'll keep switching it on and off. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, that would be okay. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. No, I be able to conclude the session, rather try to take as many questions and queries, because I was looking at the list of the students, like most of the fellows or students, etc., who already have something in their mind. I know there will be some sort of questions that they would have. Therefore, I would.
Hello. Oh, you have joined.
Can you hear me?
The voice is breaking.
As soon as ma'am is speaking, she's getting dropped off. I'll try to take her over phone. That will be much better.
Yes,
Okay. So ma'am is here with us over the call. You can hear Nikita, Vibhuti ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Sanchita ji, please go ahead. Yes.
perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. I'm so sorry about this.
Okay.
Yes.
Please go ahead. Yes,
Can you hear me?
we can hear you.
Yep.
Yeah, please go
Yeah,
ahead.
we can hear you.
Okay, so let me begin. So, first of all, I just assume that most of you are law students right now who have some career plans in mind. There is a reason why you chose law. There may be a few of you who have not studied law and maybe considering studying law, right? Because whatever these days you would have realized that whatever you are doing, whichever field you are in, the knowledge of law in itself plays a very, very crucial role in demanding your own rights or the rights of others, or even in cases where you're working, say, for a government, for a private sector, you need to know the law as to it. Not just it governs not just your own relation with your employer, it governs aspects of your job as well, right? For example, if someone's say working in a government department, because I've been a government advocate in Meghalaya, so kind of understand how government departments work there as well. Sometimes they keep getting stuck because there's a gap there. Though they're working in the department, they don't know what the law is asking them to do, and therefore they're doing it correct from their viewpoint, but they have to be guided constantly. That's where we lawyers also play a role in policymaking in a way, even when we may not know what the policy is, but to the extent that law kind of informs these policies, therefore we lawyers have a very, very important role to play. So one way, of course, we lawyers play a role, as I said, was when you're a government advocate and you're assisting in departments, sometimes you're even asked to frame regulations, right? If you're on the panel, sometimes you're going to be consulted. For example, when Aadhaar, this privacy whole issue came up, then the government was considering to draft some regulation. So it was actually the lawyers on the panel who were consulted, who then consulted me. So these kind of opportunities also come up if you are interested in public policy as well as you have a background of law. The other thing that law students, particularly who are studying law right now and are looking forward for a career in law, may of course think of going for litigation, may think of going for corporate, whatever you may be, wherever you may be at right now. Or you may be confused, you may be like, oh, I need to pay off my student loan, or my parents have spent so much on my education, and therefore now I need to earn, and I need to get a good package. There will be different motivations for you to get a good package. Maybe other people in your class are doing really well, and whoever is doing well, the parameter of success is largely determined by the package you get once you start out, right? As it is with the very simple happening, etc. So then you are thinking in terms of what should I do now so that tomorrow I can get a good package. So it's not a bad place to be in, even if you're thinking in those terms. So whatever your motivation may be, what you need to do when you are studying law is, of course, you need to do internships, but not just to show it on paper. Many people get opportunities during their internships. For example, wherever I interned at,
whether it be a law firm, whether it be a senior advocate. For example, Mr. Salman Khurshid, he liked my work so much. I did an internship with him when I was in the second year. And he liked my work so much that he remembered it. So you may think that you're not getting work. Maybe I got work from him. No, I didn't get it from him. I was just observing. And I just had the guts to speak up and say, I have something to say. And to be able to contribute by thinking that what I have to say may make a difference in the strategy. Right? I was very convinced. It was not even me. I was saying, oh, they're not discussing this point. Like, let's get them this point. Right? It was like that. It was like, I was thinking in terms of how to help them. If I'm there, then there has to be some role that I can play as an intern, as a professional, right? That I didn't have that agenda of PPO. I didn't know what that meant, right? Because I studied where people were not, that these motivations were missing among the students at that time. Now, we're not right? But what I did was whatever was at hand, I did, right? So this is what you can do is by because go there to learn, also have it's your mind and eye also right? And when it comes to learning, I did a lot of emphasis on internships because students, of course, they're now being compelled to do a certain amount of internship, but that does not mean that it has to be on paper. That does not mean that you need to go to say, those brand names you need to have on your CV. That's important to have them because it shows that you have something in you because of which you got selected, even though most many internships people get that for the sector, but it does not mean that it have so the mistake that I committed of not applying for as many internships should not be done by you. You should always apply to the best person as well as to the people who are likely to get internships. But don't miss out on the best. For example, if you're willing to do an LLM, don't miss out on Oxford. Start from there and then also apply to the colleges that you think will give you, right? So this is the internship bit that you go to court. Now, when you go to court, the kind of things that you observe in court as a student, because you're very, very, very raw at that time, right? You can be even naive, if I can use that word. So whatever you observe, you're very open to observation. So the things you observe, the time you have to observe, you don't have it later on. Later on, you go with a brief in your hand and all that is going on in your head is your case, you do it, and then you have to go back to office to work further on your case. You're not expected to wait there and observe proceedings by your seniors. Therefore, this is the only time when you watch proceedings and learn. This is a privilege that even senior advocates don't have. So therefore, utilize this because this is one thing that Mr. Khurshid worked with us on. It's like he never had time for us, but even if he had 5 minutes, he would ask us, what did you observe in court today? So that would make us feel like we need to observe it, right? He also laid a lot of emphasis on observing the judge's mind. For example, today I was supposed to kind of argue a matter where I could have gone on to say a lot of things, but I realized that the judge was not inclined to go so much into that aspect, right? So I jumped to the next point. So when is the lawyer doing that? So you need to be able to observe what the lawyer does, how he changes his strategies, which point he's arguing, why is he not pressing this point, right? All of that, and if he comes back to that point later on, how does he do that? How does he play with the kind of language he's using to validate what the judge is saying and yet being able to make his point, right? So all of these are the strategies that you learn in your student life and then you develop it later on, right? And similarly, the language that's used in petitions, that's developed in student life because your ability to pick up is more, when you are studying, reading so much, right, grasping things, reproducing them. So your ability to pick up the legal language is also maximum when you are a student. So utilize this opportunity, you participate in moods, because then you will be required to prepare memorials where you're required to read judgments, use the legal language, right? At that time, what I would do, I would just use the phrases as it is. I would try to use as much from the judgments, right? There's no plagiarism in that. You just get to learn more how to use this language, and then it comes naturally, it flows naturally, right? Then comes your the second aspect is, so all of you by now would have some kind of strength, right? For example, my strength when I went to law school was definitely my ability to comprehend. When I would read, I can comprehend long passages, and I can understand what it's going to say or what it's trying to say, right? So this is something that when you used to do English comprehension, remember, you thought this is useless, but that's what it was doing. That's what it was testing, and that's what it was encouraging you to do. And that ability to comprehend, we don't know how we would have developed it, how we could have developed it. I used to read a lot. Maybe that's how. You don't know how it got developed, but you will have certain strengths that you have, like, for example, your memory or whatever that strength will be. Identify that and develop it as well, right? So then what happens now? How did I use this comprehension skill? So basically, when you read judgments, your entire life as a litigator is about reading judgments, understanding what they're trying to say, what is even unsaid, right? How you start interpreting it differently, etc. But first to understand what is said in that judgment and whether it's relevant for you or not. In your facts circumstances, you may have to scan and skim through a lot of judgments, maybe hundreds of judgments in a day, and therefore you should start developing that habit from now itself of using SCC, etc., and you learn through trial and error. So just sit for hours together and keep doing it. That's the only way to learn this, right? So therefore, if you have any of this ability, right, scanning through documents or skimming through, quickly understanding all of this, but don't think, oh, I have this. Don't be complacent about it. Keep working on it, keep developing it, and your research skill automatically gets developed when you do this. Even if you don't have these strengths, it does not mean it cannot be developed, right? For example, I don't have networking as a skill. I really don't. I connect with people, and that's that. I can't ask them, oh, can you give me work, right? So many people would otherwise have given me work, but I can't. I had never thought I can ask, right? And I don't talk to people just to get something out of that, right? So therefore, that would make my networking skills very, very limited in scope. So that was not helping. So when I came to practice and I went independent, I realized actually litigation is also, it's not about just litigating. It's like running a business. Now I didn't have those things. I didn't have any of those things. I am very, like a spiritual kind of a person who doesn't care how much money one has, but one has to run their office, right? So then I had to develop that kind of, like, I have to have targets. I have to have, where should my matters flow from? Who should I contact? How many people should I contact? Those kind of strategies also I started building up. But when you can start even when you are a student. But again, doing it superficially doesn't help. So when I say that it's a skill, there's a reason I say it. If networking would have been just about contacting people, then it wouldn't have been called a skill. It's a skill because, again, some of you may be people's person, right? You can use that. Some of you may be introvert. Then you have to kind of plan and think how to reach out, etc. But what is important to keep in mind is, if you do it authentically, then it works. If you don't, then it doesn't work to that extent. But you can't always kind of connect with people authentically all the time. But to just reach out then becomes as important. So say you reach out to hundreds of people in a year, out of which you have authentic connections, say with 10, 15 people, even that works, right? So don't stop at thinking, but I only want to connect with limited number of people, or how do I connect with so many people? I don't know people, I have this limitation and that limitation. For example, I'm a first generation lawyer, I have a lot of limitations, I have a neurological limitation also. That's again, I couldn't do, for most of my life, I couldn't do things that other people would do, right? And even now, I couldn't go to courts regularly. All of this was there. But then the thing is, should I let that mar my future experiences as well? Or can I, whatever I have, can I use those as my tools and work further? Because there would be people who don't have this. There would be people who may have all that I have, and yet it's not about them, it's about me, right? So there may be thousands of people who are better than you, but till the time you can reach your target, till the time you have goals set and you keep growing, you keep evolving, then that's where your satisfaction comes from, right? And with time, then you realize, like for example, now I realize, okay, fine, I am in the race, right? For the longest time, I thought I was not in the race because my limitations were too much that would stop me from even going to parties, even meeting friends, meeting people, right? So therefore, but then that's the thing, that even if you have one such limitation, say for example, you have some obligation at home, you can't really go out that frequently, or you have other limitations. For example, women may have different types of limitations. In fact, the society itself creates certain constraints. Like for example, Sindhu Malhotra once said that, it requires a lot of lobbying to become AGs and SGs. Recently, if you would have realized, there's a petition that has been filed in the Supreme Court saying that there are no, how many women agents are there and why is there no prestige, etc. Why does this happen? Because the condition that the society has, if a woman kind of reaches out too much, then the way people would look at them can be different. So unless your husband knows people, unless your father knows people, unless your brother knows someone, it really gets a little trickier for women to network on their own as widely as men would in our society, right? So that's also a limit. So there can be so many limitations that I can count on. I mean, you can't count on fingers. It's more than that. So for each one of your fingers, more than that. But then you also have a lot of strengths with you that you need to be able to identify, you need to be able to develop them, you need to be able to take pride in. Like the very fact that you've come to study law, you're planning for a career in it, it itself shows that you're someone who believes in growing, because it's a career where you grow throughout your life. You have kind of committed to it, right? So that itself shows that what you're made of, and therefore there would be insecurities, there would be fears, there would be doubts. Right, that's because we are perfectionists that we have these doubts. But it's the design of human mind and human system that function in this manner, and then we work on it. Sometimes we work on it, sometimes we get better at what we are doing because of these fears and doubts. So they will come, and then you overcome, and then you keep doing what you do. Some days are just about keep doing what you do. No matter what you feel, what you feel, doubt yourself, but you still show up, right? Yes, so now I think if we can be ready for questions, and if something someone wants to say. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yes.
Right. So is it okay to take questions right now?
Yes, you can. Yeah.
Yes, Nikita.
Perfect. Please.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I request the Chair, Professor Vibhuti, to share her remarks.
Yeah, I think Advocate Ain has given us a very good insight about the way career can be built up, and how the legal awareness and the knowing of the law is very helpful.
all of us, like being lay citizen, when we started taking interest in the public policy and we became social activists, we had to first thing we all had to grapple was the law, demystification of law for the people with whom we are working, and also building legal awareness for self as well as for your colleagues and the community with you are working. So it's a very important, whether you choose the to become a journalist specializing on public policy, the way we had some resource person who played very proactive role in public policy through their journalism or through their writing or through their research or joining active politics or joining NGO or a development sector or a think tank. Everywhere, I think the legal awareness is very important. So the careers in law, and so many people, I think, along with their basic degree, they also, in our times, it was much easier to add on the law degree or join the evening classes or do the paralegal course. Now also there are many such courses available, so which are very important. I think she gave a very good example of the controversy around Aadhaar. There were so many types of public opinions, political opinions were there about Aadhaar and the question of privacy and all. And slowly and gradually we saw that most of the people, even those who were opposed to Aadhaar, they also started getting their card because there were it was linked to so many day-to-day life, wherever, whether you dealt with the bank or paying your getting admission in the college, or even for us who are government employee, state government employee, without Aadhaar link, we would not even get our salary. And then the basic fear about Aadhaar that also was that way reducing among the masses. So I think the legal implications of water, another very important example that we had was during the pandemic, whether tests which were required to be outside, the RT-PCR test, what were the laws? Like every time I went out, we were getting RT-PCR test done. But at the same time, there is a group called campaign against RT-PCR. They said it was not required. It was and there were people who were managing like very frequent travel during the pandemic and during the lockdown by using the law that if you are not infected, and if you are feeling you don't have any symptoms of COVID, you can travel. And they said it was not mandatory, while we all thought that it was mandatory. And we also, even the authorities, they were demanding that. The kind of everyday changes during the pandemic, in terms of how the law and order machinery was functioning, I think automatically made people to get to know the new covenants and new laws and new rules and regulations through WhatsApp or through social media. So now we see that on the whole, general masses also have a more legal awareness about day-to-day life. But I think we need to know the law about our governance, like about for our career, for our daily negotiations with the survival struggle, and also about the larger issues about gender-based violence, or about environmental law, or about the laws of certain rules and regulations as a citizens. What are our rights and what are our obligations when it comes to safety of the community? So I think it is very important, the legal awareness and legal education and legal mindset to create is very important. If you just have a phobia for the legal language, that also we need to overcome, because the demystification is a very important aspect of the law. And now I think there is a demand also. They don't make the legal language so complicated that it won't be accessible to the masses. No, that should not be there. And this legal awareness should not happen only in English, but also in the regional languages. That's what I would like to see, so that everybody knows about it. Because we saw the migrant crisis. So many migrant workers, nearly 3 crore migrant workers were on road, and they did not know some of the laws which were used as an emergency. The Epidemic Act, India Epidemic Act, which was made operational during the pandemic, and massive brutalization and violation of human rights of the common people took place because of not having adequate knowledge of the law. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I request Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam to share her remarks.
Yeah. Yeah, as we have seen, as we heard, the speakers, for past 2 months, we have seen that law has been, utilized in a different manner as a tool by, different kinds of people in different fields. So when you are working in NGO, you're using tool to, we have seen how RTI law is being made within a village, as Professor Aruna Roy has, shared her experience. So, we have seen how a women's movement has monitored law, they've seen how law is being implemented, and then they've suggested amendments in law. So law is being used as a tool, by different people in different professions. So it's not only limited to litigation. So because generally people have this idea that, law only means litigation in the courts, but the law has, various meanings and various kind of ideas for different kinds of people. So so maybe, even if I'm in a home as a mother, I have used law. As a citizen, I use law. As a wife, I have used law. So all kind of laws have different kinds of it has helped different people getting their different rights to undo wrongs. So law has different kinds of values for different kinds of people. So, but surely people have that kind of, the common people have different kinds of, kind of barriers when they think about law. So, when I started my career, my family refused. My parents say that, okay, you won't do law because we don't have anybody in the family who could help you. Yeah, going to law is something which is very different field. So, but then somehow I persisted, and basically, as a lawyer, you need to read and read and read. So law is a profession which will never let you, become redundant, because if you are not reading, you will not be aware of different kinds of new laws which are coming up, the different new kinds of judgments which are coming up. So definitely you have to read and read. That is the only thing which is very, important if you are pursuing a career in law. And surely if you are giving exams for your judiciary, or if you're a policy professional, if you're a researcher, law gives you different kinds of perspective to really understand the situation. So that is the power of law. So of course law is being written in a very technical manner, because we have inherited the system of the Britishers. But yeah, we can rewrite the laws. We have this power to rewrite the law. We have this power to reformulate the laws, as we have seen in women's movement has done it. Domestic violence law is being made by common people, women's movement. Sexual harassment law, different kinds of laws are being made and interpreted by people in different forums. So this is the only thing I have to say about law, and surely we can take up more questions.
Thank you, ma'am. The floor is now open for questions.
Thank you for this amazing discussion, because just give me 2 additional points to just add to this discussion. One is that with the awareness about law, so there is definitely a difference between awareness and kind of thorough knowledge. So sometimes we see someone who has studied law, not just read law, would see that there's a gap between that awareness and knowledge kind of boxes, right? And therefore, our role then, the scope of our role becomes even bigger, because then we are also kind of generating awareness, and we are also filling that gap. So these days, therefore, you would see a lot of articles being written by lawyers, etc., to tell them what is happening. Even legal journalism has become a kind of career in itself, and a very, very big career, in fact, where journalists are expected to explain what the law is, right? The other aspect is the fact that when you are in a career in law, so one is of course knowing law when you are, say, in a government department, you use it as a tool. When you're in an NGO, you can plan strategic litigation. You can also kind of, as someone said, litigation is not just the only way, but you are using your knowledge of law in your day-to-day activism, demanding from government and negotiating, etc., in your advocacy campaigns. Even in private sector, as I said, it's not, for example, blockchain, like someone who's dealing with technology, someone who's dealing with algorithms, right? You need to understand privacy law, etc. Like my friend is working with Facebook. She manages their public policy, but she has a specialization. She actually used to work on in the area of child rights, and Facebook has hired for her to look at the child related policies that they have, right? So you are not just then using the existing law. Sometimes you play, and mostly when you are thinking of a career in law, you're thinking in terms of evolving the law as well. When I use the word contribution, and therefore I emphasize it right from when you're a student and you're studying law, you should emphasize on your role of contributing through your existing knowledge and to can you believe you can participate in the evolution of law? That's what career in law would actually mean, right? That's what makes you different from other people who just know law, because you're able to contribute in such a significant manner. When I used to read Constitution Commentary, for example, I used to read that, this happened in Kharak Singh, for example. This is what it was, Article 21. A certain interpretation was given. Menka Gandhi, it became broad, and then kept getting broader and broader. Right to food is also part of right to life. This is also right to environment. All of that started happening. Did it happen by itself? So my interpretation was, what did the lawyer argue in court that made it happen? Right. Similarly, in any sector, sometimes these policy changes happen because someone says, no, but this is not how it should be. Right. And how do you get that confidence of saying that this is what it is and this is how it should be? Is because when you have a thorough knowledge about it, right? And then you also know how that you also have a vision in mind that this is how the society should be. This is how things should be. This is not right. So, but then just saying this is not right won't help. Then you use those tools that you have learned in interpreting judgments, etc. Right? You use these skills and then you interpret, and then you help in the evolution of law. Something that I was just studying when I was a student. I read the entire case on the Bharti, and I was like, what did they argue? What did he argue? What did that lawyer argue? What made them good? Right? And then when I was assisting in linking of PAN with Aadhaar, at that time, I drafted a written submissions which were in 2 days, which was purely academic, because I have an inventive academic bent of mine. I wrote Dworkinian theory of dignity and all that, right, and other jurists. And Mr. Kushi didn't have time to kind of edit it. He said it just become too academic. I said, now nothing can be done. So we filed it as it is. And then you realize, not just in that judgment, but later on, whether it be privacy, whether it be Aadhaar, whether it be 377, in all these judgments, you'll find a very, very detailed exposition on the concept of dignity as propounded by Dworkin and other jurists. So that started with that judgment, actually, where the Justice Sikri reproduced the entire written submissions and then gave his finding in our favor, striking down the retrospective application of a certain provision. So it said, the Income Tax Amendment Act said, that if you don't link PAN with Aadhaar, it would be deemed as if you have never kind of filed your return, for example, right? So that part got struck off. And how did it get struck off? Because someone thought of arguing right to dignity, right? Because right to privacy, we didn't want to argue right to privacy because it was already being discussed in the privacy bench. It would have taken a longer time for the judgment to come. Therefore, we wanted to distinguish it from right to privacy. Mr. Shyam Devan argued right to bodily integrity, right? So we thought, what else can we argue? So we argued right to dignity, and then you realize that it gave a basis to and exposition on right to dignity, in expanding right to life, to include so much more. So that's the kind of role you can play when you choose a career in law. Yes, now we have questions, please.
Thank you, ma'am.
Very convincing.
Moving forward, I request Professor Vibhuti Patel to give her closing remarks for the session.
Yeah, I think it was a very, you mean this particular session? But Dr. Ain's presentation?
No,
Hello?
the
Entire, yeah. I think the entire today, both the sessions were very useful because Consumer Protection Act, we have seen all our relatives and elderly people, most of the retired people have been using because our society generally cheats the people who are aging. And I can also see after my retirement, how different sectors of the, whether they are shopkeepers or banks or this thing, they just take you for a ride. No, they never ask what is your experience. So I think it's a very important. We have had a very heroic history of consumer protection movement. There are so many dedicated people who volunteered to sit on the committees of the Consumer Protection Act. And it was when Dr. Shalu Nigam was speaking, I was just reliving my experiences and my friends' experiences over last 5 decades, that how they benefited from the Consumer Protection Act. So it was very useful, all of us, and I think she rightly concluded by saying that there is an inertia about this act, and I think we need to again revitalize people's interest that you can't take the system for granted, you can't take the suppliers for granted, you have to stick out your neck, both even for a good cause. If there are the people who there are some consumers who say that we will not receive a packet if it is given by if the employee is a Dalit or a Muslim, then too we have to stick out our neck that you can't ill-treat people, or if they misbehave with the people who come at your door, whether they are from the Amazon or any other e-commerce, then also we have to talk about the human rights. And at the same time, when major malpractice that takes place in terms of wrong information and unfair trade practice, then also we have to be alert as citizens. And the last one is the career in law was also extremely important for all of us, whether you are a journalist or a teacher or a student or a person in working for a think tank or a researcher or a policymaker or administrator. I think all 25 lectures have shown all the speakers who spoke right from the very first lecture by Mr. Sandeep Chatra till today's by Madam Sanchita Ain, all of them have a very strong footing in law. Whether you want to do research or teaching or training or documentation or research or just conversation and network building, legal awareness is very important for your career and for your life, day-to-day negotiation of your life. So I think both the sessions were very good. And I think all the best for you for the last day of the our course, where I think we will have valedictory session and also certificate distribution. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. With your permission, we can go for the vote of thanks.
Yes, please go ahead. Yeah.
As we come to the end of day 25 of Law and Public Policy Youth Fellowship and Online National Summer School Program, a 2-month online immersive legal awareness and action research certificate training course and internship program, I, Nikita Bhardwaj, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, would like to propose the formal vote of thanks on behalf of IMPRI, New Delhi. We are grateful to our experts for the day 25 session, Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam and Advocate Sanchita Ain, for taking out their valuable time and giving us an opportunity to learn from this online certificate program. We thank our chair, Professor Vibhuti Patel, and lead advisor, Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam, for convening the session. We thank all of our participants who have raised pertinent questions and actively participated in today's celebration. We look forward to welcoming you coming Friday, that is 11th August at 11:30 a.m. for our day 26 of the certification course by distinguished experts, Shri Surendra Nath Tripathi. We are grateful if you are watching us later on YouTube or listening to us on our various podcasts or reading our publications. We hope you continue to join in future to our IMPRI #WebPolicyTalk and #WebPolicyLearning. Wishing you a good day. Thank you.